The knock came just after sunset, sharp enough to cut through the hum of my apartment. It landed with intention, not tentative or polite, but firm, like whoever stood on the other side already believed the door belonged to them. When I opened it, my body went still before my mind could catch up. My mother stood there, the same woman who had walked out when I was 9, smiling as if time had folded neatly around her absence. As if she hadn't missed birthdays, report cards, years. As if she hadn't vanished. Beside her slouched my half-brother, Caleb, thumbs flying across his phone, sneakers already planted on my welcome mat like he'd been here before. Like he planned to stay. "I heard how much you make now," she said lightly. Her gaze sweeping my apartment, lingering on the clean lines, the city view. The quiet proof that I had built something without her. "Family helps family," Caleb added without looking up, a smirk tugging at his mouth. 60 grand for tuition. 3,000 a month. You can handle that. My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. In that instant, I understood this wasn't a visit. It was a raid. I grew up in a small Ohio town where winters overstayed their welcome, and the smell of fryer oil clung permanently to my father's clothes. My dad, David Foster, ran a tiny diner on the edge of Main Street. 3 red booths, a flickering neon sign, and a coffee pot that never rested. It wasn't much, but it kept the lights on. After my mother left, that diner became our lifeline. I was 9 when she walked out. No warning. No explanation. Just the slam of a car door and the image of her suitcase wobbling down the front steps. Dad told me later she'd met someone else, a man who promised her a better life. For years after that, I lay awake wondering if better meant a life without me. Dad tried to be everything. Every morning at 5, he unlocked the diner and fired up the grill. By the time I came home from school, he smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee, fingers nicked and raw from the slicer. Still, no matter how exhausted he was, he'd sit across from me at our wobbly kitchen table and ask, "How was math club today?" Sometimes he'd nod off mid-sentence, and I'd smile and whisper, "It was good, Dad." Money was always tight. Lights flickered when the heater kicked on. Some weeks the fridge held little more than milk and half a jar of jam. I started babysitting at 12. Stocking shelves at 14. Cleaning houses by 15. Every dollar went toward rent, groceries, gas for Dad's rusted pickup. He'd scold me, say I shouldn't worry about bills. But worrying was the only way I knew how to help. School became my escape. Numbers made sense when nothing else did. I joined math club, entered competitions, stayed late tutoring classmates. When teachers talked about college, I listened like it was a secret door I might be allowed to open. At 17, I earned a full scholarship for data analytics at a state university. The night the acceptance letter arrived, Dad cried right there at the diner counter, wiping his eyes with a dish towel. "You're getting out," he said, voice breaking. "You're going to make something bigger than this." College was brutal, but it was mine. Tuition was covered, but rent, books, food weren't. I worked mornings as a waitress, afternoons at a law office, nights cleaning corporate buildings. My life blurred into bus rides, instant noodles, and fluorescent classrooms. I came home smelling of disinfectant and exhaustion, but I felt free. I was building something on my own terms. By graduation, I had a degree, a job offer, and a quiet fire in my chest. I moved to Orlando for a data analyst position at a growing tech company. The first paycheck felt unreal, more money than my dad had ever made in a month. I sent him $500 immediately, then more whenever I could. He hated taking it, said I'd earned it for myself. I wanted him to rest, even if just a little. Years passed. Promotions followed. I bought a sleek downtown apartment, ceiling windows, city lights. The kind of view I used to imagine during long nights of studying. My coworkers became my chosen family: lunches with Nina, weekend volunteering with Kara, coffee runs with Ryan next door. Still, some nights I'd open a drawer filled with old birthday cards from my mother. Everyone the same. Happy birthday. Hope you're doing okay. No warmth. No love. Just proof she still existed somewhere. living a life that didn't include me. So when she appeared at my door that autumn evening, smiling like nothing had happened, it felt like the ground shifted beneath me. I built everything from scratch: career, peace, purpose, and suddenly the ghost of my past had found my address. The night after that knock, I barely slept. Her smile replayed in my mind. Caleb's smirk. The way she'd said family helps family, like it was a law, not a manipulation. By morning, a text waited on my phone. Lunch, my treat. There's so much to catch up on. Curiosity beat instinct. Maybe I needed closure. We met at a crowded cafe near my office. Espresso hung thick in the air. I spotted them instantly. Mom in a floral blouse, too new for someone struggling. Caleb slouched beside her, AirPods in. Her hug was perfumed and stiff. Foreign. Small talk came first. Then the shift. You know, your father made it impossible for me to stay in touch, she said smoothly. That's not true, I replied quietly. He begged you to call. She waved it off. I struggled too. Caleb finally looked up. We've had it rough, he said with a laugh. Dorms, cheap cars. Not fun. Then the ask. 60,000 for tuition. 3,000 a month. She smiled like it was nothing. Like she was borrowing sugar. How do you even know what I make? I asked. Her pause was just a fraction too long. 2 nights later, they showed up again. No call, no warning. Just another knock, sharp and demanding. Mom brushed past me into my apartment, perfume filling the space. Caleb dropped onto my couch like he owned it, commenting on the TV size. Why are you here? I asked. Just to talk, she said. No tension, then stop asking for money. She didn't, she pressed harder. Caleb laughed. You're fine now. What's the big deal? How would you know what's much to me? I snapped. Her eyes flicked away. I know your salary. My stomach turned cold. She glanced toward my desk. Caleb followed her gaze. Stop, I said, too late. He was already there, fingers tapping my laptop's touchpad. My financial dashboard glowed on the screen open. My pulse roared in my ears. What are you doing? Caleb didn't flinch. Just checking how rich you are, he said with a smirk. Mom's voice cut in syrupy but sharp. We're family, Julia. Why hide anything? I slammed the laptop shut so hard. The sound echoed. You went through me things. She crossed her arms, tone hardening. Don't be dramatic. We just wanted to see how you're doing. How I'm doing? My voice cracked. You hacked its email to find out where I work. You broke into my life again. Her face palled. Don't blame me for your father's failures. I had to know you weren't trusting your potential. Caleb snorted. He's a loser anyway. You're better off without him. That was it. The room blurred. I could hear my heartbeat like thunder. Get out, I said. Mom blinked. Excuse me. Get out before I call the police. Caleb stood muttering. You're insane. Mom's face twisted, anger breaking through her mask. You'll regret this, Julia. One day you'll need us. I opened the door, voice steady. I've needed you for 20 years and you weren't there. They hesitated, then left. The door clicked shut behind them. Silence filled the room, heavy, electric. For the first time, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom sharpened into resolve. I didn't cry that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the laptop they'd touched. The anger wasn't loud anymore. It was cold, razor sharp. All those years I'd believed silence meant peace. Now I understood silence could also be a weapon. I opened my laptop and began to trace what they'd done. My work as a data analyst had trained me to notice patterns. Irregular login, timestamps, footprints that people thought they'd erased. Within minutes, I found a forwarded email from my father's Akunto moms. The subject line was my full name. Attached was a payroll summary I'd sent Dad months ago when helping him file taxes. The forwarding had happened 2 weeks earlier from an IP address I didn't recognize. My hands shook, but Mimin was clear. I printed everything, organized it in a folder labeled IT evidence. Then I called Dad. He picked it up after the second ring, voice growly from years of coffee and late nights. Hey kiddo. Everything okay, Dad? I said softly. Did you send Mom my salary info? He paused. No, I never. Then realization hit. She's been in my email, hasn't she? I could hear him exhale, tired and sad. That woman never learned boundaries. I felt the tightness in my chest ease a little. I'm handling it, Dad. I just needed you to know. The next morning, I called Mark Sullivan, a lawyer one of my co-workers recommended. His voice was calm, efficient. I told him everything from the hacked email to their visit to my apartment. He didn't flinch. You have proof? Yes, I said, sliding the folder across his desk later that day. He flipped through the pages, nodding. Then we'll file for a restraining order. And you'll want to inform your bank's fraud department. Hearing those words felt like breathing clean air after years of smog. Someone finally understood that this wasn't family drama. It was violation. By that afternoon, I'd changed every password. I had set up two-factor authentication on everything, even ordered new security locks for my door. The next morning, it went to court. I remember the sterile smell of the hallway, the low murmur of other cases being heard, the sound of clerks stamping the papers, thump. That sound felt final. For the first time, I wasn't the scared kid watching her mother drive away. I was the adult drawing a line she couldn't cross again. Days later, my phone buzzed with an alert from the bank. Unusual transfer attempt. $10,000 from savings account. Declined. I stared at it for a long moment, then laughed quietly. She tried again and failed. I forwarded the notice to Mark. He replied within minutes. Already covered by the order. They'll face consequences if they try again. The satisfaction wasn't the vengeful kind. It was measured calm, like closing a book that had been left open too long. A week later, I went for dinner at Dad's diner, renovated, now clean and bright, after I helped him pay off the debts. The smell of grilled onions and fresh coffee hit me thick-skinned. I walked in. He looked up from the counter and smiled. You look lighter, he said. I am, I told him. Andy meant it. That night, back in Orlando, I watched the city lights pulse below my window. For the first time in years, I felt completely safe. My mother had taken enough from me. My childhood, my trust, my peace. But she wouldn't take me future. So I poured another glass of water, opened my laptop, and started building something new. A small charity fund I'd dreamed about for years. I named it the Foster Fund for Kids Raised by One Parent Fighting Their Way Up just like I had. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. My own quiet way of saying you can't take from me anymore. A full year passed before I heard her name again. By then the restraining order had long been granted, and my life had rearinged itself around peace. The mornings were quiet coffee brewing meals, waiting sunlight spilling across me apartment floor instead of anxiety. One evening, Dad called while I was driving home. You'll never guess who reached out, he said, his voice careful. Your Aunt Ruth, I smiled. Haven't heard from her in years. She wanted to talk about your mom, headed. Aunt Ruth and I spoke the next day. Her voice was low, worn with regret. Marie burned every bridge she's ever had. She borrowed from friends. Lead about you said you refused to help. People finally caught on. She and that boy of hers moved out of town. No one knows where. I didn't feel triumph, just a strange stillness. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, I said quietly. Ruth sighed. You sound like your father. After that, I let the silence close. I didn't need updates or apologies. What mattered was that her chows could no longer reach me. Therapy helped me understand something I'd never been able to name. That my guilt for surviving was heavier than her betrayal. Dr. Brooks once told me, you can't healing the same story that broke you. I carried that sentence with me like a mantra. So I wrote a new one. The Foster Fund became official within months. Small scholarships for kids from single-parent homes, mentorship programs, tutoring nights. Kara, my friend from work, helped design Theatrice. Ryan organized local sponsors. The first time I signed a grant check, he thought of the diner lights flickering in Ohio, of Dad flipping pancakes to keep the electricity on. The cycle ended there. Sometimes I still catch myself waiting for another knock on the door, but it never comes. The silence now means safety, not threat. Last Thanksgiving, Dad came to Orlando for dinner. We cooked together turkey mashed potatoes, laughter echoing through the apartment. As he raised his glass, hissed softly, "You did good, kiddo." I looked around the table, friends, warmth, peace, and realized he was right. I hadn't just survived her. I'd rebuilt something better. The night off Foster Fun's first anniversary, I stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking Orlando's skyline. The city buzzed below a hum of life and second chances. Dad was there smiling in his worn blazer, talking with Carrera and Ryan. Laughter floated through the warm air. The kind used to think belonged to other people. I looked up at the glowing sign, Thefester Fund for Kids Who Fight Alone. It shimmered like closure made visible. In that moment, I thought of the girl used to be the one who waited by Theodore window, hoping her mother's car would come back down that street. She never did. But maybe that was the point, because losing her forced me to defend myself. I raised my glass and whispered, "This is family." Then I turned toward the camera, toward you. If you've ever had to draw a line to protect your peace, you're not alone. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when everything falls apart. If this story hit close to home, hit like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more real stories like mine. Your voice matters. Tell me yours in the comments.